The yoga practice that we're going to go through today is going to be a transitional practice. So in summer, the organ that is in its dominance is the heart. It is the element of fire. And so summer is all about us going out into the world. It is about participating in our community, using our hands, like using our speech, because our tongue is connected to our heart. And so it's the words that we say to our community. And so a summer practice is a practice that gets heat out of the body, because in summer, we don't want too much fire element taking over the body, because this is where things like inflammation will take root, the bones will dry out. And so it's good to be able to have a more gentle practice as summer wanes to clear the rest of the heat out of the body. Because what happens after summer is that the spleen takes over the energy of the body. So these organs rise and fall, right, throughout the year. And so when the heart reaches its lowest point, the spleen takes over 18 days before the autumn equinox. And the spleen is our mind. It's when we think, we chew, we ponder, we masticate, we exercise good judgment. It is really like, our muscles. And so when we have dense muscles, these are dense parts of the mind. And so when we're transitioning from the fullness of summer, right, the expansion of fire, earth energy takes over and kind of shakes up the whole entire body. It shakes up, the energy of the body, because what happens at the autumn equinox is all this energy contracts back in. And so if we can't get out, the remaining heat or the phlegm in the body, then when autumn contracts back in, what happens is that, that gets stuck in the lungs, and respiratory issues and like all this kind of stuff with the lungs will begin to manifest in autumn, or in the autumn season of your life, which is elders. And so when we are working through our yoga practice, it's really important to change your practice on the seasons, because, that's what your body is changing with the seasons as well. So this will be a great practice to get any heat out of your body before we move into the spleen practice or late summer practice, which is really about creating a good structural frame for your muscles to operate in. And then in autumn, it's all about opening up the lungs, twisting, breath work, like really clearing out the lungs and encouraging this inward drawing energy, which is what autumn is. It contracts you, it pulls you back into your house. You gather and, you collect the harvest and you go back into your home, so that in winter you can go deep, descend, and go into your meditations and your insights and your reflections from the previous year. So we're going to start the practice, and it's going to be a much more cooling practice. It's really going to balance the heat of summer. So I really like to use blocks, props in my practice. So make sure if you do have them, you have your blocks handy, you have your bolsters handy. I like to use all of it because it is also effective to unwind the body and to not have to use your muscles to hold yourself up too much. So we're going to start with a really, really simple back bend. And so when we do supportive back bends, it is really to open up the field of the front of the body. We spend so much of our lives hunched over that when we can open up the front of our body, we really get an opportunity, right, to unwind the effects of our life, of our day-to-day. So you're going to have 3 props, or 3 blocks, sorry. You might need 4, and it just depends on you and how open your body is. So you're going to line them up so that 2 of the blocks are going to be right behind the back of your lungs. 1 is going to be on your head. And so for many people, you'll probably need, excuse me, to have this on the highest setting, or you might need to stack another block under it. So all you're going to do is you're going to bring the soles of your feet together and the knees wide. And you don't want to be too tight here. This is a really tight bound angle, and it's going to really stress your inner groin, but you want to bring your feet a little bit further out. And then you want to get the blocks perfect so that they're right behind your shoulder blades, like this. And then you will take the other block right underneath your head. And so how you know the placing of the block under your head is that you want to have the back of your neck and the front of your neck open. And so what I mean by open is that when you're laying your head back, you're not collapsing your head like this. You should see no wrinkles right here. You are pulling your head back so that there's a lot of space in the back of your neck. Because the moment you throw your head back, you try swallowing, you try talking, it's impossible. And so you're creating a lot of stress on your occiput, which is the base of your skull right here. And so if you have to stack up some blocks, so that the back of your neck is open and long, then do that. And then just wanted to really make a good point about that, because I'll see so many people in their practice throwing their head back like this. And all it does is it deteriorates your cervical spine right here at the base of your skull. So you really want to make sure that you're not one of those people. So come down onto your blocks and then find the block under your head where the perfect placement is. And then all you can do is just grab the block with your hands and reach your elbows up towards the sky. And then if it's too much with your legs like this, you can always straighten them out in front of you. Press the balls of your big toe together and keep your heels wide. But if you can, keep them in a bound angle. And so now when you find yourself here, start to bring the breath into your belly and let the breath rise up the whole front of your body. So with every inhale, you want to imagine that you're filling yourself up like a beaker. And every exhale, that you're just releasing the breath out of your body. And so with the blocks behind your back, right, I really like to use wooden or cork blocks because they're firm enough to allow the bones of your body to move. Because that's what we're doing here. We're looking to shift the way that the rib cage is, because in our day-to-day, we tend to hunch over a lot. And so as you breathe into the front of the body, right, you're retraining your body and your lungs to breathe more fully where they know how to breathe, which is in the front. And in the fullness of summer and in the heat of summer, right, these are really good postures that you can use so you don't create more heat in your body, more unnecessary inflammation. And so I really like to connect in with my practice before I even start moving with a supported back bend. It really allows you to give yourself a moment to tune into your breath, to connect in with your body, to shift yourself from the things of the outer world to the things of your inner world. And so if this is getting too much on your arms, you can always grab your opposite elbows and reach your arms above your head. And alternatively, if you'd like more, you can interlace your hands once above your elbow. And if you can, right, you're going to grab your hands, or the arm that's on the bottom will actually grab the other hand's wrist. And then whatever shoulder's on top, you'll just turn your head that way and open up your thyroid, which is the gateway to the lungs, which is your ventilation system. So the thyroid is really important to essentially regulate like the temperature in your body. So the ability for you to cool yourself down when you're too hot, right? The ability for you to warm yourself up when you're too cold. And so every time we change the hands, all we're doing is we're changing the way that the breath is going to come into the lungs, because arms are extensions of our lungs. And just like our legs will manipulate our kidneys, the left root you get from your mother, your right root you get from your father, right? And so how you place your legs is manipulating that same side kidney. How you place your arms is going to be manipulating your lungs. And so when we crisscross the arms like this, what we're really doing is we're giving the shoulder blades, right, their proper place on the rib cage. So if you cross your arms, make sure you go both ways. You can grab your elbows and reach your arms back again. If you're overly flexible and you find that your arm bones are actually going beyond where your ears are, then you're going to want to keep your arms up, place some blocks behind your arms, or just do the crossed arms. And so you get to know yourself in this practice. You get to know where you overdo it, where you overstretch yourself. You get to learn where it's a little bit too dense and too tight, where you have to open yourself up, where you need better boundaries. And so all of this is really about learning yourself, about using the tools that you have to get a better understanding of what is going on inside of your body so that you can be reflected in your life. You'll be reflected those same insights, and then you get to make the changes in your body, which reflects the changes in your life. And so when we work with the body in this way, it's very powerful. When you use these maps, these geometric proportions inside of your own body, what you're doing is you're facilitating this whole being change. And so on every dimension, because you cannot change one piece without changing it all. If you put too much salt in your cake, right, any bite you eat will have too much salt because it all mixes together. And so this is really the premise of knowing that your whole body contains patterns, right? And the patterns follow through everywhere. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, just bring your arms down to the side. You're going to press into the mat and lift up and off of the blocks. You can bring your feet together. And it's really important to just notice here how much more open the front of your body feels, how much more you can really access the lungs through the front of your body. And so what we're really doing is we're looking to reshape the bones of the body and balance what is happening in our everyday lives so that we don't get a hunchback, right? So that we really know how to fight our fight, to diminish the defeat that is, the deterioration of life. And so we get to use these practices as longevity practices so we know how to hold up, so that we are in charge of our own health and our well-being. So the next thing I want you to do is to take your block and to sit on it. So we're going to come into Virasana. You're going to place the knees all the way together, and the heels will be right on the outside of your hips. Eventually, when you're in Virasana, the arches of your feet, when you come down, perfectly match the arch of your butt, right? So you want your toes rolling in a little bit so that your pinky toe side of your foot is down and your knees are all the way together. So when you come here, when you sit on the block, it's much easier. So if you have to sit on 2 blocks, sit on 2 blocks, because the more you find this height, the more you're going to place yourself between your pubis and your coccyx. So you don't want to be sitting back on your tail after all the work we did with the front body opening up, right? You really want to encourage and keep that alignment. And so when you're here, just close your eyes for a moment and just use your imagination to draw a line from the universe through your skull, through your throat, through your torso, through your perineum, and down into the center of the earth. So when you orient yourself on this line, it's really to find the center of yourself, right? So you're at the eye of the storm. In the center, right, all your circumstances can move around you, but what you're doing is you're gaining this self-mastery over your inner world. And so know that everything in front of you is your future. It's where you're headed. When you step forward, you're going out into the world. Everything in behind you is the memories. It's where you've been. It's the past, right? So every time you dig your heels in and sit back, it's like you sitting in your home. And so we really want to find the center point of the present moment so that you have the option to go forward if you'd like, or to come back. And so we're just going to do one practice just to keep the heat leaving the heart, right? You're going to reach your arms up towards the sky. And so this is just going to be a quick breathwork practice. And all you're going to do is on the exhale, you're going to pump your breath out, and you're just going to feel like your belly button is slapping into your spine, and you're just going to switch which hand is in front. And so it's going to feel like a fan, right? You're going to exhale, 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 exhale. So go ahead. Out, 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 out. And just sit here for a moment and pump your breath out. And so a big part of summer is that we take on a lot in summer, right? We have a lot going on in our house. If you're in the summer of your life, this is like the fullness of you. It's your radiance. It's when you have kids in your house. It's when you have your job. It's when you have your partner. You have like all of the things that are demanded of you. And so summer is really like this big fulfillment. And we take so much stuff in and we take so much stuff on. And so a big trick at the end of summer is to eventually get some stuff out of you. And so this is so that, right, when you go into autumn and you go into winter and when you're inside of your cave, you don't have to take so much stuff with you. And so when you're exhaling and exhaling and exhaling and exhaling, you just imagine that you're getting rid of your prejudices, your opinions, your preconceived notions, right? Anything that's not serving you. That's what we're doing here is we're looking to get it out. And so the thing is with the heart is that it carries our emotions, right? And if we can't let our emotions move through our emotions, so all of these emotions sit in our heart in this chamber, and eventually, right, it becomes turbulence. This is when our house burns down. And so in Chinese, the symbol of the heart is an empty hollow. It is where your spirit resides. It's the Shen, right? It's the aspect of your consciousness that is plugged into the cosmos, that is really giving you the guidance you need to walk your life path. And so when we have too much stuff in our heart, too many emotions festering in there, repressed feelings, like all of this stuff that gets trapped in our heart, then we cannot listen to the guidance coming through us. And when we cannot listen to the guidance coming through us, we feel very confused and conflicted in life. We feel like we don't know which direction to head. We feel like we don't know our purpose on the planet. We really feel like anyone can just tell us anything, and it pushes us off center. And so when we come into the alignment of the heart, and when we exhale and exhale and exhale and get all the stuff out of our heart that's no longer serving us, what we're doing is we're creating this as an empty chamber so that our spirit can come back in, so that we can gain this direction, this intuitive knowing, these feelings that drop in from the cosmos, so that we can know what step to take next, right? And it's never to think we know what it is, but it's always to think that what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves in the middle of ourselves so that we can receive exactly what we need to move forward. And so a lot of this practice is really learning to go inside of yourself and understand, right, what is coming through you, rather than what the mind or the ego or, you know, these limited beliefs about you has you think is best for you. And so there's a lot that we get to undo in this practice. There's a lot we get to let go of in this practice. And so every time you exhale, you get more of an opportunity to let go, to let go, to let go, to let go. So just go for a little bit longer. If your arms are burning, that is great, right? Arms are extensions of the lungs. And so the more that you can really work your arms and strengthen your arms, what you're doing is you're strengthening your lungs. And so this is doing is that before we go into autumn, right, you're already participating in the health of your lungs. The heart feeds the spleen, and then the spleen feeds the lungs. And so when we're working in this seasonal and cyclical way and looking to balance ourselves with the seasons within our own body, within our postures, within our techniques and our tools that we have, we are supporting the natural flow of the organ movement in the body, right? And so this is how we receive and achieve, right, this whole body health and wellness. So we have the tools to support ourselves when we need it. So whenever you're ready, take a big breath out, exhale, bring your arms down. And we're going to do a little breath retention. So don't do this if you're pregnant. Do not do this if you have high blood pressure. If you feel funny, you can stop. But exhale all your air out. And the more exhale, the more you get out, you'll feel this tug in your pelvic floor. It feels like a little tent pulling up. So you're going to want to keep that tug. We're going to reverse the flow of the breath. So keep this tug on the exhale, and then only breathe into your lungs. So this part of you is pulling up. Inhale into your lungs. Take in 3 more sips of air when you think you're full to equalize the pressure in your lungs. In. Tuck the chin in towards the chest. Do not get a double chin, but tuck it in slightly. Take your tongue on your palate where you'd say the word lovely. And as if you are like right before you're about to click your tongue, you're just going to hold your tongue in this suction. Pretend like you're sucking on your thumb or a straw that's clogged up. And then just pull and hold the breath in. So you're pulling from the base, and you have this like suctioning motion from your tongue. These are the 2 locks that you're using, because what this is doing is it's pulling all the energy into the center of your chest, into your heart, right? And so the heart is really, it's connected with the thymus gland, which is our immune system. But the more metaphorical, energetic aspects of the heart is it's like the steering wheel of your vehicle. It's driving you through your life. Because when you're receiving that connection from the cosmos, right, it's not your mind and you that's driving, right? It is this higher force that is moving through you. And so this connection to the heart is invaluable because it is your intuition. It is these intuitive hits that leads you through life. So if you're still holding your breath in and it feels fine, hold it in for a little bit longer. But whenever you're ready to release the lock, you're just going to take a slight inhale. And then exhale, let the breath go. And then just give yourself a moment. You can flip your palms up towards the sky. And now you'll find a natural breath. So every time you inhale, the pelvic floor releases down. And every time you exhale, there's this slight lift in the pelvic floor. Inhale, releases. And exhale, lifts. And so this is the natural movement of the breath. When we do the retentions, we're reversing that. Because a lot of this practice is to reverse aging, is to reverse the effects of the world, is to reverse the, you know, the disintegration that is the body's movement through time. And so this practice is really to reverse, right, what is going to happen naturally by having awareness and prescience of what's to come. And so we're actively participating at every moment in our health and our well-being. We are using time in such a proficient and directed way so that we do not waste our time, so that we're always getting the most out of the things that we're doing. So when you're ready, bring your way forward. Bring your block off to the side and just stretch open your feet. So tuck your toes under. And same thing in Virasana here, what you want to do, but with the big toes together, is to keep the heels an inch apart. So there's a little bit of spacing here. You can take your little pinky toe and move it over to the side. So you just stretch open the arches. If this is like so intense for you, come forward and just go back as much as you can. If you feel like you could stay here, but you're too close down, you can use a block. Eventually, you're just going to be right on your feet. And then you're just going to interlace your hands and reach them forward. Right, if you're here. And you're going to keep your shoulders down your back, so don't let them hunch up. Pull them down your back. Press your palms forward, and then press your sternum back so that you're playing with all these natural waves of the spine. And this is a key part of this practice, right? And so your ears are going to be above your shoulders, above your hips. And now you have your natural waves of the spine. You have the sacrum, the thoracic spine, the back of the head mirroring each other. You have the lumbar spine and the neck mirroring each other. And so this is the way that the energy flows through the spine, through the body, right? So that it can move into all of the organs. You have to think of your spine as like a circuit breaker. And so between every disc, there's a little channel that's moving into an organ or a gland or a system of your body. And anytime one of those are blocked, right, the channel is blocked. And so those organs can't function the way they're meant to. And that's why this practice is about creating space in your body so everything can move the way it's meant to move, right? And so if you want a little bit more, you can slowly start to reach your arms up. So only reach your arms up as much as you can so your shoulders are rolling down your back, right? Eventually, you'll bring them right in line with your ears. But the moment your shoulders lift up, like this, and you get this like ball in your armpit, right? You've gone too far. So your armpits should be like pits. You want to keep them like pits so that a ball could fit in there, not that they turn into a ball if you lose your shoulder. Right? And all this is going to do is it's just going to open up your shoulders. You're opening up your feet. You're opening it all up. Give yourself a couple breaths here. And again, wherever you're working, if you're working here, it's better to work where you are than to go too far and lose the alignment of the pose. Bring your hands down. Take your feet back behind you. And so if this is enough for you, you can stay here. If you want to stretch the front of your foot, right, you can eventually go here. But I do this every day, so, take your time. You don't run a marathon without training for it. So come onto your hands and knees. And when you're here, measure your hands out shoulder distance. So turn your middle fingers into touch, and then pivot your hands out from your thumb mounds. Your thumb mound is this meaty part of the hand. And so when you turn your hands out, what you're doing is you're setting your arms up shoulder distance. And so too close, you collapse your collarbones in and you don't have as much space in your lungs. Too far, you overwork the back muscles, which we already do, right? And so you turn your hands in and turn your fingers out and you put your palm of your hand right below your shoulder. What you're doing is you're putting yourself in the center of the arm bone. And so this arm is framing up this lung. If it's too tight, the frame is going to be off, right? And you're really going to feel it and have to overwork your muscles right here. And so all this practice is to really learn how to not use your muscles so much, but how to be in the center of your arm bone. Because when you're using your muscles too much, you're wasting energy. And so we're learning to use our energy more efficiently. And so when your hands are shoulder distance, don't spread your fingers too wide because you're going to feel that in your shoulders. Bring your fingers in. Find your index finger knuckle pressing down because so many people will lose that point. So index finger knuckle to outer wrist, pinky finger knuckle to inner wrist. Press into your palms and lift off of them, right? So press into the ground and lift off. And then make sure from your middle finger through the center of the wrist, both of those 2 points of each hand are in line with one another. So they're parallel. Or if you're on your mat, they're aligned with the long side of your mat. Now walk your knees in enough so that you are at 90-degree angles in your arm bone, 90-degree angles in your leg bones. If you ever don't know, you can always use a block, right? They hold 90-degree angles because what you want to do here is to really learn how to use the geometry of the postures. And so the geometry are the angles, right? You want a 90-degree angle to be in the center of the arm bone, 90-degree angle to be in the center of the leg bone. Make sure your feet are hip distance, your knees are hip distance, which is 2 fists between your knees. And then when you're ready, we're just going to go through cat-cow. So press your pinky toe side of your back foot down. So you're really in the center of the knee. Almost feel like, if you're rolling your knee out to the side that your butt bones are like popping out. This is going to give you space in your lower back. And then as you inhale, look forward and arch through your whole spine. And as you exhale, curl and round and look at your belly button. And then just go back and forth. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And so with cat-cow, this is one of the best poses that you can do every morning when you wake up, right? It's going to open up your spine. It's going to flush out your breath. Essentially, it's like you opening up the window of your house, right? You let a breeze come through. You let the dust move out. We're really house cleaning in this practice. And so the moment you realize that your body is your house, like, yes, it's your temple, but your body's your house. You can't escape it. You're living inside of it every single day. And so you have to know how to participate in your health, right? It's one of the best things that you can do is to learn how to clean out your house. And so right here, we're cleaning out the spine. We're cleaning out the lungs, right? We're really getting a handle on like what it feels like to move forward and back and forward and back. So remember, every time you inhale and come forward, you're moving into the future, right? It is like you stepping out. Every time you exhale and curl and round back, it is like you hanging back into your memories. It's where it feels safe. It's where it feels stable, right? Because you've been there before. And so a big trick in life is to learn how to be in the moment, to be in the center moment where you have the flexibility and the pliancy to be able to go out when you need to and come in when you need to, right? Because people that are out too much become explosive and people that are in too much become implosive. And so where's that balancing point, right? This is where you get to know yourself. You get to learn about yourself in the mat. On the days when you feel like really agitated, you take more time for yourself because more is required of you to hone back and come into your personal practice. On the days you feel really good, you probably won't need as much yoga. You have the facility and the care to be out into your world, really participating with others. And so this practice isn't linear, right? You're not going to do the same things every day at the same time every day because you are changing. And so you get to learn how to change in your circumstances within how you're feeling, within the season of your life, within the season of the year, within the phases of the moon, by checking in with yourself, right? And this is why when you learn to use time efficiently, right, you are always checking in with yourself. What do I need right now? Because the moment you fall off track, it takes so much to get back on track. Right. And so we're really learning how to stop wasting time, how to use our time efficiently, how to use our bodies productively and effectively. So come back to center, take a deep breath in, fill yourself up. And then now as you exhale, you're going to make little circles, right? And so if you've never done this before, it might feel a little funny. It's like if you had a pencil on your tailbone and you're like making circles on the wall behind you. And so if you've noticed you're hanging back on the heels of your wrist, shift forward to the knuckles of your hand. It's so easy to fall back into old patterns, right? And so this practice, what we're doing is we're just constantly reminding ourselves, shift your way forward to the knuckles of your head. Find your index finger knuckle to your outer wrist, your pinky finger knuckle to your inner wrist. Create this X on the hand and lift up to the center of the X. The arch of your hand is the same as the arch of your foot, right? And so when you lift off of that center and you start circling your spine like this, the arch of your lower back is also the same as the arch of your hands. And so we're really learning to play with all these little pieces in the body because the piece will change the whole, right? And so when you make these little circles, make them really tiny initially, we're really looking to create a little bit of water, the water element in your body. And so when you go back and forth and inhale and exhale, there's a lot of heat in that. But when you start to create these circles, right, we're moving from the heat and the fire and the efforts, which is really that first fire of desire of our reproductive organs, just striking a match and getting ourselves going in the morning. When you make these circles, it's all about your kidneys, your ancestry, right? The kidneys are the element of water. They have their time in winter. And so when we make these circles and we start to move and turn around the underground waters of us, of our ancestry, of where we came from, really, it's really to like flush out our bones. It's to know that your bones are meant to be pliable. And that's why arthritis always shows up as we're nearing the winter of our life, right? It's when the bones start to dry out. And so a lot of this practice is to see it coming, right? When you learn how to circle your lower body, you learn how to move the waters of your kidneys so that you could keep your bones pliant, fluid, mobile, come back to center and change directions. And so for most of us, one of these directions is going to be really hard. It's going to be like, feel very clunky. And so just notice, right? Anytime you're moving clockwise, which is when you're circling from your pubis to your right hip, to your coccyx, to your left hip and around like that, that is your spin through time. It's like the rational linear mind that thinks time is on a line, right? I have to get from point A to point B and find the shortest route. And it's going to take me X amount of time to do this many miles, right? Very linear way of thinking. This is how the 3D dimensional world, the body perceives time, but it's not the only time. And so when you go counterclockwise from your pubis to your left hip, to your coccyx, to your right hip, this is the spin of the moon, right? It's a rhythm that we can't really fathom. It's when you're using your right brain, which is more, all time and space at once. It's when we're at whole and at peace and at one with everything. And so it's where time doesn't exist in the sense that it's from point A to point B, but it's where all of time exists at one time, where you can fold it all into yourself because you don't need to walk the line, right? And so this practice is really about understanding where you go too much, where you're too good, because eventually that will blow out. And then you start to see where you don't go. So you start to have insights you've never had before. And this is how you're going to have a transcendental experience, is you're going to start to transcend your frame of reference where you are right now in this time and space. So you don't need to climb to a mountain. You don't need to have a psychedelic experience. When you want to shift and transform yourself, the best place to do it is right now, right? By changing your mind, by changing your opinions, by changing your beliefs, by changing your perspective, by knowing that the moment the opinions get rigid, right, the narrative starts to fall apart because everything is always changing. That's the one law of nature, impermanence. And so the more rigid we get in our mind, the less able we are to fluidly adapt to the changing circumstances that are life, right? So come back to center. And now here, I want you to take your right wrist and just flip it all the way around. And so you're going from, 90 degrees to 180 degrees. Now, if this is so much for you, and you're like, how on earth can you flip your wrist around? Grab a bolster or like a cushion or something and put it underneath the heel of your wrist. So it's like you're giving your wrist a high heel. And when you can do this, it's actually kind of nice if you do it under both, because then it just evens out your shoulders. But it'll allow you to flip your wrist all the way to 90. So you don't want to be doing this with like a half flipped wrist, because then it's going to build pressure and you're going to hurt yourself, right? So get up on as much height as you need so that you can really flip the wrist all the way around. And so the beautiful thing about a flipped wrist is the moment you flip your wrist, it puts your shoulder blade exactly where it needs to be on the rib cage. And so it's actually the best way to find the true alignment of the shoulder. Also, with our lives and the computers and the phones and like all the things that we're doing with our hands all the time, if you're not flipping your wrist, you're going to get carpal tunnel. You're going to get wrist issues. You're going to get, the thumb, like all the issues that people have. And so you have to be able to see it coming. And it's really hard to repair yourself after the damage has been done. And so you still can, but wouldn't you want to have the tools beforehand? And that's why you want to learn the tools before you need the tools, right? And so flip your wrist around, whether you're using the bolster or not, your hands are still shoulder distance and your hands are on the same line, not like this, right? And so when you're here, bend into this elbow. So this elbow should be bending straight back. Again, if you're using the high heel, it'll be easier. That elbow should be bending straight back. It should not be bending in. It's because we're looking on reframing, reforming the bones of this arm, especially if they've been misused for so long, right? So the elbow should bend straight back. This collarbone is open. So the wrist is setting up, the elbow is setting up the collarbone. We want all of these pieces lined up. Again, the arm is framing up the lung. And so the minute, right, if this is like this, then this frame is off, right? And so use as much height as you need so that you're actually getting the proportion, the geometry, right? The alignment of this posture rather than going for the depths of the posture, because this is where people hurt themselves. And so if you have to do it in front of a mirror so that you can see truly like, am I at this perfect rectangle? And then how can I get there, right? And so flip your wrist around. I like to make little circles and just stretch it out a little bit. You know your circles both ways. And both of your wrists are going to feel very different. And so whichever arm you overuse is going to be the harder arm to flip around, right? And so in the practice, what you want to learn how to do is if you're doing your sticky side, do your easy side and go back to your sticky side so that you learn to find balance in your body, right? Because it's not about just doing 8 breaths on this side and 8 breaths on this side. It's about you actually learning about yourself. And if one side is tighter, you're going to want to go do more breaths on that side. Because the thing is you're probably overworking that side in your life. And the right arm, this is the hand that goes out into the world that makes deals, that signs checks. This is like the office, right? And so you can shake it out. You can flip sides. And again, you'll notice which one is easier. Again, use as much height as you need so that you can really flip it all the way around. The elbow bends back, right? The collarbone opens up. So you're lined up, you're lined up, you're lined up. And so the left hand is the hand of the heart, the feelings, the home, the first love that we heard when we were young. And so, injuries and things that happen to our body, right? They're always signals. They're always alarms. They're always telling us something. And so anything that happens to you is not arbitrary, right? We are always calling in everything to our field of experience. And when you begin to understand and learn the maps of the body and what piece is reflecting what and what leg does what, like the left, like the embodiment, the mother, really being at home, right? Making the nest. The right leg, the father that shows you how to go out into the world, step out, right? Put the foot on the gas and get moving. And you start to learn about where you had to overcompensate. You start to learn about what's a little bit messy and sloppy in your practice, what's a little bit off, so that you develop a more well-rounded version of yourself, right? Because that's what it's about. It's about having options, and you don't have options when you push or you're pulled by your conditioning, right? You don't have options if there's an injury that you won't even go to because you just simply don't have the tools to clean it up. And so the injuries always happen for a reason, right? They're giving you information. And so when we learn to use this information that the body is relaying to us, we can really learn to participate in our health in a way that most people can't, right? And so these are codes, these are valuable codes. So we really can start to learn about ourselves. So when you're ready, go both ways, shake your hands out. I really like at the end of this, to sit back. You can grab your wrist, which is when you grab the bone, you grab like right below these bones, or sorry, right above, I guess, between your hand and your bone, and shake it out. And then do both sides. And then when you're ready, you go back to your mat. And so set your hands up again, shoulder distance. Turn your middle fingers into touch, pivot your hands up from your thumb mounds. Make sure your middle finger through the center of the wrist is in line with the long side of the mat. Make sure your knees are hip distance. When you're at this 90-degree angle in your table pose, you're going to tuck your toes under and come into your first dog pose. So dog pose. Do not straighten your legs in dog pose. So many people want to do this. What happens is you lose this beautiful wave in your lower back and you put too much pressure on your kidneys. This will dry out the kidneys. This will lead to arthritis. So bend your knees, lift your heels, and stick your butt all the way up. Look at your feet and make sure they're 1 foot distance or hip distance. Turn your heels out because you don't want your heels turning in, right? Turn your heels out and just like your hands are straight from the middle finger through the center of the wrist. Your feet are straight from the second toe through the center of the heel when they're parallel with one another, right? So it'll look like the heels are slightly turning out when you're here. Then when you bend your knees and lift your heels, bend them a lot, right? Get your torso on your thighs, stick your butt all the way up towards the sky. So you have a straight line from your wrist all the way up to your butt cheeks. And then slowly unbend from the legs, but don't straighten them. Just unbend them enough, right? So that you still have a back bend in the front of your body, right? You always want a back bend in every posture. You don't want to just fold into yourself all the time. So a piece of you is always looking out. A piece of you is always aware, right? Eyes are only ever closed 9/10. So look out towards your hands, bend into your knees, lift your heels, and then get really anchored in your right hand. Press your right palm down, roll the shoulders, right? Down, down, down your back, armpits in towards the heart. And then take your left hand and place it on your back, right? And so with your left hand on your back, you want to cross-reference from your right hand to your left butt, take the left butt all the way to its own side, right? Press into the left foot even more so that you're increasing the spacing, the distance between your right hand and your left foot, right? And so whatever hand is on the ground is the lung you're pumping up. And this is the right one right now. So just feel what it feels like. Try to keep the hips square. If the hips go off, something to practice. Come back to center. Give yourself a moment to recalibrate. Press both palms down, bend into your knees, lift your heels, stick your butt up. And then press into the left palm and take your right hand on your back. Perfect. And then again, take your right butt to its own side. So you're cross-referencing the left hand to the right butt. You're just feeling what it feels like, right? Which lung is weaker? Which hand is harder to balance on? And you're going to spend more time with that hand. You're going to learn to strengthen that hand, right? So you start to get to know yourself. And then walk your right heel in just enough so that the heel goes down, and then stretch your left leg up, right? And again, don't throw your hips out here. Keep your hips square. Roll the left thigh in towards the midline of your body. Stretch that leg up as far as it can go. And then switch sides. Left foot goes down, right foot goes up. Again, roll the right thigh in towards the midline of the body. Press into your right palm. So there should be like there's no weight on your left hand at all. And the right right leg that reaches up. And then bring it down and walk it back into your dog pose. So good. Okay, walk your feet into your hands into your feet. Take your fists between the center of your arch and walk your toes in just a little bit. So this is going to be exactly the same as turning one foot in to touch its inner heel. This is going to be when your heels are right below your butt bones. You can take your fists and place them between the center of your arches and walk your big toes in slightly. And so what this does is it puts you in the center of your leg bones, just like we measured the hands. And when you bend your knees enough and get your torso on your thighs, your knees fit into your armpits. So grab hold of opposite elbows. Bend your knees enough. So you do not want to be here in a forward fold. This is how you slip your disc. This is how you stress your kidneys, right? When we really want to find the stability and the anchoring in our hip joint, we have to have our knees in our armpits to truly be in our hips. Because when our knees are in our armpits, if you watch any child move, this is how they move. This is how they pick things up. They go like this and they lift up all the time. They're in their hips. And so what happens is we stop doing that and then we lift things up and we pull out our lower backs because we are simply not lifting with our lower body. And so that's what we're doing here is we're learning the organic movement of the body, what actually supports the body, and your hips are what support you. So keep your torso on your thighs, bend your knees, grab hold of opposite elbows, hang over. And just hang here and shift your weight forward to the balls of your feet and shift your weight back to the heel of your feet and just feel what feels more comfortable for you. Right? Are you the type of person that likes to always be on the balls of the foot where it's a little bit anxious, where you're always like tripping over yourself, where you're like always out into the future? Or does it feel safer to be on the heels of your feet, where you're digging in your heels, where it's really rooted and anchored, where you really like to work in the memories of the past, how things have been? And then just go forward and back so you feel what it feels like to be fluid,
to have options, to know that the center point of the foot, right in the center of the arch, is the moment. The moment is always changing, right? The moment becomes the memories as you move forward into the future, and it happens again and again and again. So the art of life is really learning how to move with it, right? How to adapt to circumstances, how to be in the center of your sphere and not let things knock you over. And then find the center of the foot, right? So find yourself equally distant, right? Press your big toe mound to your outer heel, your pinky toe mound to your inner heel, lift up through the center of the foot, release the head down, and slowly rise up one vertebrae at a time. So tuck your tail towards your heels, lift yourself all the way up. Roll your shoulders down your back a few times. And we're just going to do this a few times. So tuck your chin in towards your chest. Roll all the way down until your knees are in your armpits. Grab hold of the elbows the way that feels funny, so the opposite way you did before, the opposite way you want to do. And just rock it forward and back. Release your hands, roll up. One vertebrae at a time. Roll your shoulders a few times. And then again, tuck your head, roll all the way down. Rock back and forth. Beautiful. And then walk yourself back to a dog pose. So now that you know your hands shoulder distance, measure it, place your hands shoulder distance. Turn your middle fingers into touch, pivot your hands out. Know that when you're learning a new trick, you want to use your measurements again and again and again, right? Consistency, repetition, results. Make sure your feet are hip distance. That was 1 foot distance. Measure it. Look towards your hands, right? And however is possible for you, you might have to come onto your fingertips with your right hand. You're just going to step your right foot forward and bend your back knee down. So right foot steps forward, bend your back knee down. And actually keep your back toes tucked under and lift up through your back leg. And so what you can do here is if you have a block, it'll make it so much easier. Is you'll just take a block under your back thigh. And so eventually the geometry here is one straight line, right, from your legs. So you don't want to be bending into your back leg and having any angles here, right? That's why I like to angle the block slightly. Press the back of your big toe mound down, right, so that you're staying really buoyant. Your back of your ball of your foot is your lung, right? So you're staying buoyant in the lung of the foot. And then walk your foot far enough forward so that your heel is right below your knee. So you can place eventually the palm of the hand fits on the ground. And so if you have some tight back muscles back here, it's going to be really hard to get your hand down. It's probably going to feel like you can't get your knee in your armpit. I do not recommend using a block under the hand because then it just keeps you where you're at. So if you have to use your fingertips, keep your fingertips down, right? Eventually you just want to stay here long enough until that hip opens so that you can get your right knee in your right armpit. And so wherever you are, walk your fingertips out to their own sides. So the right fingertips go to the right. It's going to be a 45-degree angle. If the 0-degree angle is from your pubic bone forward, right, and your 90 degrees is your right hip out, 45 is the middle of that, and then 45 is the middle of the other hand. And so wherever you are, right, even if you're here just trying to get your knee in your armpit, because your knee is designed to fit in your armpit, just start making little circles with your hip. And so we're really using the block to just support us here. Right? We're not getting into anything too heated, unless this is really hard for you. It's going to be a little heated. But we're really looking to just drop everything into our hips. And so the energy of summer expanding up and out, what happens is this flip that brings us back into ourselves is dropping us down for winter, which brings us into our kidneys. It's the descent. And so as fire rises up, water descends down. And this is the balance between summer and winter, between fire and water. Right, and so we're just looking to descend a little bit of this energy down into our hips. Make sure that you have a straight line again from the second toe through the center of the heel, lined up with the long side of the mat. So make sure your toes aren't turning out. Beautiful. So we're just flushing out the hip. Again, the right leg is the right kidney. It's the paternal root. It's the root that steps out into the world. The father figure, right? The archetypal masculine teaches us how to be in the world, how to step out, right? With our willpower, which is our kidneys. Nice. And then step it back when you're ready into your dog pose. Give yourself a minute. You can shift your weight from hand to hand and foot to foot. Just walk out your dog. And we'll do the other side. So step your left foot forward. Again, take your block under your leg. And then again, if you know how to flip your wrist, you can flip your wrist here. And the arm bone will be the same length as the shin bone. The thigh bone will be the same length as the torso. If it's really hard for you to get here, all you're working on doing is just dropping your torso into your hips, right? If you have a child, a friend, just get them to step on your back. Because it's that weight, right? If you have a sandbag, throw it on your back. If you have something weighted, throw it on your back. Because muscles can be so dense and can really hold us back. And the only way they can release is if they have pressure against them. And so even if you have like these straps work so well, these buckle straps. Right? To eventually hold us there, right? And so you buckle yourself in, you tighten it up, and you'll find it so much easier to get there because the muscles are literally just doing what they know how to do, which you've taught them to overwork, right? And so when you get into the strap, now the strap is holding those muscles down and you can get a little bit deeper. And it feels so good. I mean, if you have a strap, just do it. It just releases so much. Because muscles are like, right? It's like it moves the course of your rivers. And so when you learn how to manipulate muscles with the props, with sandbags, with straps, right? The way that your current flows in your body can shift dramatically. So again, walk your fingertips out to their own sides. Just circle in your hips. Notice the difference between your two hips. One of your psoas, whichever leg is back, you're stretching that psoas. So one of your psoas is probably going to feel a little bit tighter, right? That's the leg you overuse. And when you're on the ball of your back foot, right, and keeping that back leg straight, you're opening up that whole thigh. When your thighs are open, your lungs open, right? And you have a bigger vision because it all opens up. Everything affects everything. Beautiful. If you have your strap on, you release it. Step yourself back to dog pose. And then so dog pose is always a reset, right? Look at your hands and make sure they're shoulder distance. Press your big toe or the index finger knuckle down to your outer wrist and the pinky finger knuckle down to your inner wrist. Again, lift off the center of the palm of your hand through the center of the arm bones all the way up through you. The ball of your foot to your outer heel, the pinky toe to your inner heel. Right, and so you're creating this geometry, this equilateral triangle, but you have the frame, the rectangle of your arms framing out your lungs. You have the frame and the rectangle, right, of your legs framing out your kidneys. And then you have your whole torso framed up from your left shoulder to your right hip and your right shoulder to your left hip, containing all of your organs. Right, and so all we're looking to do is to create space in our organs and in our glands so that they can function because they know what to do. Okay, so come sitting. And if you have a bolster, if you have a cushion, you can even sit on a block if that's what you have. But you're going to sit on something to give yourself enough height because we're coming into a bound angle, kind of like we started, but you don't want to be here doing it. Everything in this practice is about unwinding how we are always in our spine, right? So you want to learn to sit between your pubis and your coccyx. And how we learn to do that is by giving ourselves enough height until we can actually be there and then taking away that height as our body opens up. So never think you need to go to the fullest expression of the pose. You want to be working where you're at with the alignment, right? In the alignment. So even if that means you're sitting on a whole bunch of height, right? That's what I would rather you do than getting in the mud and sitting back on your tail, right? And so sit on a lot of height, bring the soles of your feet together. If you do have that strap, you can always use the strap here. Keep your feet out far enough away from you. So eventually, this is going to be 45-degree angles. So again, 0 degrees is in front of you, these two angles, right? It's just right in the middle. So these two 45-degree angles from that center. Because when you're at those 45-degree angles and you fold over, eventually your head will fit right in the center of the arches of your feet. And so we're always mapping out these postures so that we're in the perfect geometry, right? Not what your feelings tell you, but what's actually measured. And so if you want to use a strap, I just crisscross it over my feet. And this just keeps the balls of the feet together. So really good for people that are too flexible because you want to put yourself back together. But also helps to anchor you in your hips. You can sit your butt back and just let your butt sit back behind you. So I always recommend using props. Props are your best friend because it takes you out of you. And you've already been you for so long and you're not here to stay the same, right? You're here to be different. So take your other two blocks underneath the palms of your hands. So we're really just looking to set up the geometry here. We have a beautiful diamond, right? We have the geometry of the arms. Again, arms are extensions of the lungs. So walk your hands out enough so that your lungs have a lot of space. Draw that line from the universe through your skull, through your throat, through your torso, through your perineum, and down into the center of the earth, right? So you're lining yourself up on this line, your whole front body, right? It's the field of your potential. It's like springtime. It's everything in front of you. And the back is the field of autumn. It's the field of the memories. It's everything that's where you've been, right? And so we're really looking to move forward from where we've been and not being stuck in what we've been in. So when you're here, you're going to take a little side stretch. So you're going to walk your right hand to the right and just reach your left arm up. And now notice if your shoulder knocks in. This will happen so often. Pull your shoulder down your back so that this lung is set up. Reach the left arm up in line with your left ear. Your jawline will fit right alongside your upper arm bone. And then you can even grab the back of your head if you want a bigger stretch. It's totally up to you. And then press your left butt down and breathe into the whole left side of the body. Breathe into your left lung. Right, so again, our left lung, our left side, this is the east side of the body. It's the innocence, it's the home. It's like when we were an infant, right? It's our younger years. It's the sun rising. It's the spring of the day. And so just notice the quality of this lung. Nice. Then bring it back to center. Walk that block back. Give yourself a minute in center. And just feel the difference, right? You should feel like the left lung is more open, more spacious. And then walk the left arm to the left. Reach the right arm up. Again, if your shoulder knocks in, pull the shoulder down the back. Your arm will be in line with your hip. Your right arm will be alongside your right jawline. Look up to the right. You can again grab the back of your head if that feels better. And then press your right butt cheek down and stretch your right arm and your elbow and your whole lung up towards the sky. And then take some deep breaths into your right lung, the west side of the body where the sun sets. It's the autumn of the day. It's when all of your obligations are setting and you get to go back inside and have time for yourself. Right, it's all the deals we make in the world. The right arm shakes hands with the people around us, outside of us. And then bring that hand back to center. And so if this feels good for you, you're going to stay here. I'm just going to change my position. And if you'd like a little bit more, you're going to use the hands on the blocks. And you're just going to fold forward. And so the moment you lose the arch of your lower back, I want you to come up and first work with this wave. The pubic bone tipping down, right? And keeping the wave of the lower back intact. And so you only go as far as you have that wave, right? You only go as far. And it might be inch by inch, month by month, right? That it is better, again, that you stay aligned where you are at than going too deep into the posture and hurting yourself. And so, like I said, eventually you'll be folded all the way forward. But until then, you have your hands on blocks. You work on tipping your pubic bone down. You work on opening that whole field from your pubic bone to your chin. You don't throw your head back, but you keep the back of your neck nice and long. Always looking forward and out. Always seeing where you're going. Always paying attention to what's coming. And always manipulating yourself in the center of your circumstances, right? with the tools that you have to navigate yourself through time and space. Nice. And then bring it up. You're using a strap, you can undo it. And how I wanted to end this practice for you is I really like to use longevity poses. So usually forward fold, rounded plow I like, but I'm going to show you a beautiful pose that you can really do, which is like the best ending of summer, the summer of the day pose that you can do. And you can either use a block or a bolster. I prefer a block. You can do this against a wall. I'm not going to, but if you're doing it against the wall, you would just go on your side and slide your butt all the way to the wall with your block nearby and slide your legs up. And then you'll put the block under your sacrum, but I'm just going to show you from the side. So the wall really helps if you find yourself doing it in the center of the room and it doesn't feel like you can release your muscles. So you're just going to take the block underneath your sacrum. So you don't want it so low that you're curling your tail again, right? That you're curling out of your lower back. But this is essentially keeping just the arch of your lower back neutral, right? And then you lift your legs up. And so if you have tighter hamstrings or like you feel like you're just working so hard to keep your legs up, definitely go against the wall, right? You want to really anchor back your hips so that you have this beautiful wave in the lower back. And you want your legs to just be floating. This is where the wall comes in handy. You can grab your elbows and reach your arms above your head. And then close your eyes and just start to deepen your breath. And so everything in nature that breathes quickly and rapidly dies sooner. And everything in nature that breathes slow and deep lives longer. And so one of the ways that we can manipulate time is to learn to breathe slow and deep. And that's what the longevity practices are for. It's for you to pay attention, to tune into your breath, and to consciously change your breath. So that instead of breathing 16 to 18 breaths a minute, which is the average human breath, you can begin to slow it down to maybe 4 to 3 to 2 breaths a minute. And so as the breath comes in, let it fill you all the way up. Fill up your belly all the way up through to your lungs. As much as you can fill yourself up and hold the breath at the top. And then as you exhale and release the breath out, keep releasing and releasing and releasing more air than you think you can. And then hold your breath empty. The empty pause of winter. And then as you inhale, allow the first inhale be that breath of spring rising up through you as the sprouts shoot out of the soil. As you hold your breath paused and full, this be the impregnation of summer, when everything is ripe on the vine, heavy, when life is full, the sun is full above you. And as you exhale, the breath of autumn, the leaves descending, everything going back to the earth, and sun setting on your obligations. So that in winter you can reflect and become internal. So you can take all your reflections and plant the first seeds of spring. And so the breath happens again and again. The seasons happen again and again. You happen again and again. Everything repeats again and again. And when you tune into the pattern and the repetition, right, you gain wisdom, you gain knowledge. And that's what this practice is to truly understand to know your position in it and what you're here for, and to participate fully. And if you did put yourself up against the wall, you can press into your feet and move the block off to the side and then just roll over and lay on your side at the wall. And if you are in the middle of the room, you can just move the block off to the side. And either way, you're going to roll over onto your left side with your hand under your ear. And just take a few breaths as all the blood comes back into your legs. And then slowly press up. And then take your time. However you want to end your practice, that is how I would end it. If you're the type that likes to lay down and do Shavasana, you can do that as well. And so these practices will change your life. When you learn how to move through the seasons in this way, having the tools that you need to participate in your health, you will completely change not only your body, but your whole life. And so if you want more of these practices, I'm going to be doing all of these in my virtual yoga studio as we move through the seasons together, as we move through the body together. There is time for Q&A. There is time for, the practice, the breath work. All of it will be provided to you. And so this practice was my gift to you. If you want more of these, make sure you join the virtual yoga studio, because inside of there, you will be getting all the ways in which you can move through all of the organs of your body with grace, with ease. These are tools that you can use for your entire life and cultivate a really deep, intentional, personal practice as well, so that every day you can give yourself what you need. And if you like more of these videos, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. There's always lots of little videos coming up, and I'll see you in the next one.